Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Room 11 podcast. In this episode, I sat down with Matt McConnell, a husband, a dad, an avid long-distance runner, and the founder of Love from Dad, a brilliant one-stop resource for fathers navigating grief after baby loss. We spoke about his daughter Wren, and it was raw. It was really raw. Matt shared memories that were incredibly personal, and he even told me a few things that he hasn't shared on other podcasts before. I'm genuinely grateful for how open and vulnerable he was. It takes a lot to revisit those days, and even more to be able to do it with such honesty and clarity. He's been on a number of podcasts already, generously sharing Wren's story and helping other grieving dads feel less alone. We had a great chat, and I have no doubt he'll be back on this one again. Also, just one small heads up, during this episode, the skies absolutely opened up outside my studio. So if you hear a bit of rain in the background, that's exactly what it is. That's just Melbourne doing its thing. Okay, let's get into it. It's good to have you on. It's good to finally to chat. How long has it been now that we've been chatting?
Oh, before the start of last year. Yeah, 2 years at least, I reckon.
Yeah.
I don't know. I forget when I'm not sure when it all started. Probably come across the Room 11 stuff back when I was just browsing the internet and looking for different things. So yeah, quite a while ago, I'd say.
Yeah. No, I think, and I've heard your story and Wren's story on a few different podcasts over those years as well, just with the Still Parents podcast and was it the Prepared Dads as well? And
Steve. Yep. It's good. It's nice to be able to have the opportunity to share. It's not about me, it's about, sharing our kids, and it's about I guess more when I tell the story now, it leads into the Love from Dad stuff. So that's what that's where the passion is, and I feel that I've hit nearly every area of podcasts that I could nearly get to now. Like I've nearly run out of podcasts that I think I've been on 6 or 7 different things now, all different, really different, type of ones. So I haven't done one now for I should be 6 or 8 months. So I've been looking forward to this.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, it's always nice to be able to share again. But yeah, it is. I enjoy it when you can sit back and relax. And I think the Still Parents podcast was the second one I did. I reckon I shot one with Steve first with the Prepared Dad. I think that was the first one I did, and then I followed it up with the Still Parents podcast just afterwards. So we're chatting them boys again in a few weeks, which will be nice.
Yeah, because you're the pod forget for Australia. Yeah.
Virtually someone that they can share a bit of stuff with down in Australia. But it's good though, because I'm always chatting to them and Lucy in the office there, and so their 100th episode's coming up soon. So
nice.
They're filming that in July, mid-July, a month from now. So it'd be good. Jump on and have a bit of a yarn. I think Kelly, the American podvocate with the beautiful voice, is going to be on as well, from what I understand. So it'll be at 5. I think it's 5 o'clock in the morning. The alarm will go off to jump on that one, so that'll be fun.
Yeah, because they live stream it as well, don't they? So because I was on in Feb, but there was an issue with the live stream, so they had to pull that. But we still recorded it. But
it is. It would have been 1 hour difference. You would have been 7 in the morning then, I reckon.
Yeah, daylight savings. So it wasn't too bad.
Yeah, we're the opposite time of the year, so we're different times. So it's gone back to a really bad hour. But anyway, it's all right. They're good lads. It's worth doing it anyway.
Yeah. It's the whole purpose of this podcast is pretty much to sort of expand on that, sort of like allowing people to share their stories, to give a voice to the people that they've lost, and also talk through sort of the ways that they were able to overcome sort of those really hard times in their lives, and what they did in sort of pursuit of that, and how they found themselves afterwards. For me, like Room 11 is the reason, like this wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Billy and our daughter dying, and same with you with love from dad, like without
Yeah,
Wren being here, then like who knows
yeah.
how many
We're just,
people may be still going through this journey without having any support because
yeah,
they wouldn't have your
yeah,
support network.
yeah.
So I think it's really good that the stuff that you're doing, and I think it's a good segue to start with your story. So let's start with Wren. If you're comfortable to take us back
Absolutely.
to that week.
Yeah. So rewind, I guess, to April 2022. We had or probably before that, let's go back to 21. We had or even we can go to town. Our first daughter, Edie, was born in 2020, just before COVID kicked off. And as you do, you have one child and you get to 18 months or 2 years. And if everything goes well, you're like, oh, well, everyone expects you to go again. And that's what we did. We were really lucky. We fell pregnant straight away. We're building our forever home down here in Warrnambool, and things were just, I don't know, they were perfect. Good jobs. Life was simple. Had everything we needed. Ready to move into the new house. And April 2022, my wife was 38 weeks pregnant. We hadn't had any issues through the pregnancy, uneventful, which is always nice. She had just a pain in her abdominal area. So we went up to the hospital just to get checked out. Maddie, my wife's a midwife. So we were going up to see people she knew, doing the right thing. She knows the rules when it comes to when you should get checked or when you should stay home. And most of the time it is you go to the hospital and get checked out no matter what. So went up to the hospital and they put monitors on, and little girl wasn't, I don't know the technical terms. I should know. I don't. She was, I guess you could say she was playing funny buggers in there. Her heart rate was dropping a little bit for whatever reason. They didn't really know. So they we're being monitored for 3 or 4 hours. And the decision was made. We're 38 weeks. Our first daughter was born at 37. So why not start an induction now? So we were for that. We were happy. We're like, yep, we're in the right spot. So the induction started at about 7:00 that night. It was Good Friday. So Easter weekend. Fast forward a couple of hours to just after 11, 20 past 11, there was an obstetric emergency. We had a cord prolapse, which meant that our daughter was without, oxygen, blood supply. So it was an obstetric emergency. We were rushed up to theatre. Living in a regional area, unfortunately, how it is your theatre teams and your anaesthetists are, on call, and they've got a certain amount of time to get to the hospital. So we got to the theatre and the lights were off, everything was shut up, and we had to sit there in the hallway and wait, which is pretty. It's a really hard thing to do when you know you're in a serious trouble. You know that your baby's life's at stake, and you're sitting there waiting. And there's literally nothing you can do. And as a partner, there was even less I could do. I was hopeless. I literally just had to stand there. I remember a lot of it. I remember vividly nearly everything, unfortunately, from the moments we got to theatre and when the theatre teams and everything arrived. My wife went into theatre. Being a partner, I couldn't go into theatre, which is completely understandable because I would have been an absolute mess in there. There was nothing I could do, and the things they were about to do, I probably didn't want to see as well. So I was left in the corridor. Time felt like it was going backwards. There was a clock in front of me up on the wall, and it just looked like it was moving so slow. I can still picture it now. It's haunted me, that clock, knowing how slow time was going and how quick things need to move for our daughter to be born. Theatre team got there reasonably quick. They were in the hospital. The anaesthetist got there touch and go with the times provided there was needed to be there by, and our daughter was born just before midnight on Good Friday, close to 40 minutes after the cord prolapse. So if you do the sums, there's a pretty big breakdown in, it just things need to happen really quickly. And unfortunately, when there is things go wrong and not everything's perfect, then its lives are at stake. And unfortunately, or fortunately for us, our daughter was, they were able to get her back to life. They were able to resuscitate her. They got her on ventilation. I was told that we had a baby that was alive at about 12:30, so nearly an hour after all the cord prolapse. That was the first news that I really had, that our daughter was alive. And straight away I just thought, oh, you ripper, that's over and done with. She's alive, we're all good, we'll probably go home soon, because you don't expect the worst. You never expect the worst. No matter what your loss is, you don't expect that it's going to happen in 20 minutes or that night or the next day. You don't expect it to happen, and then you're thrown into this world of, well, what the hell's just happened here? So I thought that it was all going to be okay. Maddie had a general anaesthetic, so she was in recovery for an hour or so, and I went back to the special care nursery where they took our daughter back to. She was on the ventilation. I didn't think too much of it. I just thought, well, this is probably just normal now after a bit of a traumatic birth. So yeah, I thought it was all right. Doctors were didn't say a lot to me. I was still pretty worked up. I was quite stressed, and I called my parents or my mother and my wife's mum in. So they were in there with me. And then after an hour or so, I went and found Maddie, who was in recovery, and told her we had a baby girl, because we didn't know what we're going to have. So we already knew the name Wren if it was a girl. So we knew that we had a girl called Wren. And I told her that she was fine. She was alive. About 3:00 in the morning, Maddie come back to the ward, and was sat down by the head paediatrician. And he was honest. He's very honest. He's a friend of my wife's as well. And he virtually just said to us, would you like to palliate here in Warrnambool? And that was the moment where you kind of, the penny drops and you realise that this isn't right. This isn't good. This is not meant to happen.
Everything comes crumbling down.
Everything comes crumbling down at that moment. And I think that's for us. That's that moment of, oh, fucking hell, what happens here? What's just happened? It's 3:00 in the morning. We just told our daughter's probably going to die. And your mind's, you got so much adrenaline running through the body. Your mind's in overdrive. They come back to us a couple of minutes later and said, oh, there's a chance she might be able to be sent to the Royal Children's Hospital in Melbourne. So we decided that, yeah, if given the opportunity, we would. We're lucky enough that the Children's were willing to give her a shot. So at 6:00 in the morning, she was bundled up into her little travel thing, and off she went. She flew off to Melbourne. So yeah, we've gone into the hospital at midday on Good Friday, and at 6:00 the next morning, our daughter's been flown to Melbourne via Piper. So yeah, just what the hell's going on? Maddie obviously had a Caesar, so she was in a fair bit of pain. I needed to get down there. I wanted to get down to the hospital as soon as I could, but at the same time, I hadn't slept. You don't really know what's going on. I was lucky enough, my dad drove me down, and I got to the hospital about, it would have been 5:00 in the afternoon, to get by Wren's bedside, which was nice. There she was. She had her own little room, 24-hour nurse in there. And Maddie was lucky enough to follow me down in an ambulance as well. She was sent down to the women's. So she was only a couple of kilometres up the road, which was perfect for us.
Even though, like, I've heard you tell this on another podcast before, it's still so raw and sort of difficult to hear, but because it's so because I can't help but put myself in your shoes and just I don't know how you were able to just stay standing through that entire thing, like having to be in that, looking at that clock, like just waiting, like without losing your mind, having to say goodbye to Wren while she gets flown.
It's one of them things.
It's so hard to. I feel like I just would have turned into a puddle and just dissolved.
I think before any of us lost children, that's how I would have thought as well. But for yourself, you just have to keep going. You haven't got a choice. And that's what it was in the heat of the moment. You've got to do everything you can, as you yourself would have done too, and have had to do.
You sort of like a switch goes on. You're like, all right, I'm in this mode now. Like you
Yeah,
sort of have like there's sort of, I want to say like a mission. Like these are tasks that you need to get done in order to get to the next step. And you're
yeah,
not thinking about, like, you sort of got like a shell around you, so all of the emotional damage that is hitting you is sort of, you're able to sort of absorb it, but not take it all the way in until this whole process is sort of finalized.
yeah. And that can be weeks, that can be months too, though. Like you can just,
Yeah.
but you have to bottle it all up for the interim. Like you've got too much happening. You can't. You've just got to keep on going. I guess that's the first part of our story, is getting Wren to the hospital, and then that's where I guess we have been lucky in a lot of ways that we then did get 8 days with our daughter, and I know a lot of people don't get 8 days. There's six people a day with who navigating this stillbirth. You you don't get them 8 days. So for me, I'm lucky. I think I feel that I'm lucky that we then did have time to sit in the hospital. We could be at the hospital 24 hours a day. We're allowed to be there. We could come, we could go. We'd eat downstairs. I was staying at my aunt's place in Flemington. So I was a short drive away. Maddie was at the women's. We'd sleep, get up in the morning. I'd go and pick Maddie up and we'd go to hospital. And we'd sit there and we'd go downstairs and eat. We were really lucky. We had friends like day one or day two send us Uber Eats vouchers. So we could order Uber Eats, and we were sitting we'd just order it and the food would come to the bottom of the Royal Children's Hospital. So we were really lucky. We didn't have to leave if we didn't want to. After a couple of days, we even got put up at the hospital. So we were in the hospital as well for a couple of nights, which was really good. So we could spend as much time in the room. We could relax as well because the nurses and the doctors are just incredible at the Royal Children's Hospital. So we were able to make some really nice memories, and we were able to do some really beautiful things in our time there with Wren.
Hey everyone, we'll get back to the show in a second, but I just want to let you know that on November 29 and 30, I'll be live streaming me riding a push scooter for over 270 kilometers around Calder Park Raceway, breaking a Guinness World Record in the process. It's called Scooting for Hope, and its purpose is to raise $100,000 for the Pregnancy After Loss service at the Royal Women's Hospital here in Melbourne, a service that helped save our second daughter's life after we tragically lost our first, Billy. That clinic is now at risk of being shut down due to a lack of funding. So this is about more than just a record. It's about keeping a vital service alive for other families walking the exact same path. If you'd like to help, there are a couple of simple things you can do. Donate if you can. The link's in the show notes and on all Room 11 socials. Or even just share, like, comment, and follow. The more engagement we get on our channels and this podcast, the more visibility we have and the better chance we have of securing funds from the big corporates. Every bit of momentum helps. So thank you for being here. Now let's get back to the show.
The reason Wren was sent to hospital, just to carry on from where we were, is it wasn't just to see how she went in 2 days or 3 days or 4 days. There was a process behind it. So when Wren was born, she was actively cooled, or she wasn't kept warm. So they stripped her right off. She had no clothes on. She just had a nappy on. The idea of actively cooling a baby who's had a hypoxic injury through birth is to try and preserve the brain, to try and let the brain, I guess, not suffer any more damage, and to let maybe the other organs in the body start repairing as well. So although she was ventilated and she had brains monitoring on for 72 hours, she was cooled. I'm not sure the exact temperature that she was, but it was quite low. The idea being after 3 days, they warm you back up again, and you have an MRI. So for us, on the Tuesday or the Wednesday, Wren was warmed back up, and she did take an awful long time to warm back up, which at the time we didn't think it was anything. In hindsight, it probably did mean something. On the Wednesday, we got the phone call that it's time for us to send her to an MRI. So it was pretty emotional little time for us because had to set her up literally to be moved on life support to go down to have an MRI. So we said goodbye then, and she went and had our MRI. On the Thursday, we got the MRI results back. First thing in the morning, we were talking to one of the head doctors there, and she said she'd seen the MRI. And we were given this little glimmer of hope that the doctor maybe shouldn't have said what she did, but she thought that the damage that had been sustained wasn't as bad as originally thought. So Maddie and I then walked out of that little consultation thinking, oh, wow, we might be able to take our girl home. So the conversations we had to have too from when we, she was born and then an MRI, there was conversations that Maddie and I had to have were the ones like what we knew that the damage was probably going to be moderate to quite severe, a moderate to quite severe cerebral palsy. It's a really cruel thing to have to think of, is like, how bad does it have to be for us to say goodbye? It's something that's you don't really think of, but it's a decision that we were going to have to make. There was a chance that Wren could have pulled through, but she may not have had any quality of life, which would give us a completely different life. It'd give her older sister, a completely different life as well. So they're the conversations that Maddie and I had to have over 3 days while we're sitting by her bedside about what we wanted for our daughter. Maddie and I decided that it'd be amazing if she could eat on her own, and that she'd be able to communicate in a way. So that's what we decided. We think we'd be amazed if we'd be able to have. And the little conversation we had with the doctor in the morning of the MRI results, she gave us that bit of a hope, and it was an incredible day. This is
so like a wave of emotions going up and down.
For us, it's probably a really hard thing for me to speak of, because I don't allow myself to dream very often and think about what ifs. But for 6 hours on that Thursday, I guess I dared to dream, and we dared to dream about what life could have been like, being able to take our girl home. It was about 4:00 in that afternoon, though. Our dreams were shattered, unfortunately, because we were sat down and we were told that the damage sustained was catastrophic, and it was likely that even when the ventilation was removed, that she wouldn't be able to breathe on her own. So we had no decision to make, and the decision we had to make, I guess, was when we wanted to say goodbye, which in itself is a really hard decision to do, because you never want to say goodbye, but you have to. You don't want to keep someone on life support, for too long. It's just cruel. So yeah, that's one of them really hard things. And I remember that night we had her in a special little room on the in the NICU up there, and one of the conversations I had to make was to a funeral home. Like, you're sitting in there, like, this things that you don't really get told, and this stuff has to happen, and you're the ones who have got to be making these phone calls. No one else can make these phone calls for you. You're the one who's got to. So we've just found out that our daughter's probably she is going to die. And one of the first things that we did, we got in contact with the local funeral home to say, hey, our daughter's about to die in Melbourne. How do we go? We're getting her picked up. So, you're always on. We did get that out of the way, and Maddie and I decided pretty quickly that we were actually going to take her home ourselves. So when the time came, that was on the Thursday. On the Friday, all my brothers or my sister and her partner and my wife's siblings and their partners all come, and we all had 20 minutes with her, which ended COVID, we nearly didn't even get that 20 minutes. We had to plead with the authority, to get a tick of approval for our family to come in and say hello. So they got their 20 minutes to say hello and goodbye. On the Saturday, we had my parents come in with Maddie's parents, and we put Wren on a ventilator and took her down to a beautiful garden in the afternoon. It was a beautiful autumn afternoon. We took her down the garden. Edie was playing in the sand. We sat there and we were just a family. We were just a family. We could have been anywhere. It was beautiful. And we planned for I guess we planned for Sunday to be the day that we said goodbye. Heartfelt were arranged to be there on the Sunday. Everything had been arranged for the Sunday. But after we were down in the garden there, we got back up to the room and we just knew that it was time. She looked tired. She'd met all her aunts and uncles and her grandparents and her sister, and it was about 5 o'clock at night. And Maddie and I just said to the nurse, "It's time. We're ready. We're ready to say goodbye." So the first thing they did is they got the ink pads out and all we did was just memory making. So like arts and crafts for 2 hours. That's what we did. We painted her nails pink again. We sung songs. We did clay molds. We took a bit of her hair. We did everything that we could. One thing that we were told by the doctor is that it was unlikely that she was going to breathe. So we expected that she was going to pass away within moments of the ventilation being taken out. So we prepared ourselves for that. It is scary knowing that your child's about to die. I'm not going to lie. It was really scary because you don't know what death's about. Your grandparents have died, type of thing, and you just don't know what to expect. And we were hopeful because we brought it forward from Sunday to Saturday. We didn't think Heartfelt were going to be able to make it, but that we didn't want that to be the reason that we kept our daughter with us for an extra night. It got to about 7:45, we just said it's time. So the nurse come up. We were lying in this. I don't know. It felt like the moon was out the window. The city was in the back of you could see the city out the back of the windows in the room, which I felt really special. And they removed the ventilation, and we were ready for her to pass away. And she started to breathe on her own. She managed to breathe on her own for about 40 minutes. It was long enough for Heartfelt to arrive and start taking photos. So Kylie, our Heartfelt photographer, who was incredible, she come in, introduced herself, and then just started snapping away. She probably was there for the last 10 minutes of Wren's life, and she was there for 10 minutes after she'd passed away. And then that was it. Wren took her final breaths about 8:15, 8 days after she was born. So this is where it gets, it's funny that you don't then know what happens when someone dies. You think, oh, it must be all clinical, but we literally packed our bags, like we're at a hotel, put Wren, we dressed her, cleaned her nappy, put her in a carrier on ice. We had ice packs, and put her in the car, and we drove home. And we arrived back to our place in Warrnambool about 3 o'clock in the morning, and that was it. The funeral director come over about an hour later, and that was when we said our final goodbyes. And yeah, then it's like, welcome to the rest of your life. What the hell's just happened?
Yeah, then it all starts to really sort of set in once the dust settles.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for sharing that in depth. Like I know it's hard, and I'd like to know, like, because this is something that I've struggled with a lot, and you mentioned it, and I know that pretty much everyone that goes through this or any type of loss struggles with the what ifs. Like, what if I did that? What if we did this instead? What if we got there 10 minutes earlier or 10 minutes later? Like you could spend the rest of your life having those thoughts going around and around your head until you go mad. I'd just like to know, what do you do to sort of combat that so you don't end up falling into like a pit? every day.
I stay away from the what ifs. 100% stay away, because if I start thinking about what if we did this differently, something else could have happened. A negative what if could also happen. And that's what I remind myself is, if we didn't go to hospital when we did, it could have been different. Ren, the outcome, what happened may have happened at home. So what ifs aren't always, what if I did this good or did that differently? There's also a negative connotation of it as well. So if I start thinking about, what if we had have went to hospital not on a public holiday? Well, something could have happened as well. So I try and balance out the what ifs. I try and stay clear of them. But if I do get, talking about a what if, always remember there's the opposite what if as well, and that could be something negative also happens. So that's just a way that I pull myself back into line. I know that we can't change anything either. Literally, it's impossible. So being in the now also helps. I do reflect on a lot of things, but yeah, what ifs are something that I always try and stay away from, because there's never a good thing comes from a what if either, I don't think.
Yeah, it just ends up just making things worse. I think I'd like the best way that I've been able to do is just what's happened has happened. The only thing you can do is to learn from those, move forward, and try and just make those moments that have happened matter.
Yeah, we're allowed to reflect on things that have happened. You can wish that things were different, but yeah, I've always tried. Well, I guess in the last 3 years, tried to stay in the now more than the past. Coming to terms with everything that happened is a big thing, and being comfortable with everything. Like I'm quite comfortable in the fact that my daughter's died. Like that doesn't. It's something that over 3 years I understand that it's happened and I can't change it. As much as I wish that it didn't happen, it has happened, and I can't change it. Yeah, it's doesn't make it any easier at times. Like you still got to live that. You live that every day. Like that's just part. It's ingrained in your body now, in your mind. It's not something that'll ever go away. But it's learning to, I guess, to be okay with it in a way. Not saying that you need to forget or get over or anything like that, but finding a way to be okay with what you've been through is something really important. As I said, I am okay with. I've learnt to be okay with our daughter dying. I still struggle with other aspects, though. I still struggle with the clock. I still struggle with the birth. I still struggle with some of the conversations that I had to have. With it's one of the really hard conversations that I've had to have is, with my parents at 3:00 in the morning. Is you're at the hospital and you call your parents and say, "Hey, this has happened." Like, how do you start that conversation? You've got to say it. And they're the ones that haunt me, I guess, is the conversations that I had to have with other people, letting them know that their granddaughter's been born and she's probably going to die. There's no really easy way to put it. On the flip side, I haven't spoken about it ever before, but I've thought a lot about what my parents have gone through, and I know it's really hard for them. Like, not saying it's as hard as what a parent has been through, but being a grandparent is extremely hard to go through because you haven't got the supports. As a dad, I've got a lot more supports than a granddad or a grandmother, that's for sure. But they're watching our pain, and they're losing a granddaughter, and they're losing everything that goes with it as well. And I was just thinking the other day, I'm like, how did Mum feel when I called her at 3:00 in the morning? And that's something that is really hard, and that's the conversation that nearly everyone's had to have with their parents at times, which is a really hard one. And I know there's no support for grandparents out there, minimal, and that must really hurt. I know it hurts my family, and I think it hurts a lot of families. But yeah, just different things that pop up in my mind that hurt. That the conversation with my mum and my wife's mum was really hard, and then close friends as well. The birth, but there's things that I am okay. I am okay with a lot of things too. I've learned to build a life around what's happened to me.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting, the parallels that we have, that I'm starting to notice now, like the fact that you remember so much about what happened, especially in those first hours, which is exactly the same as me. I was talking about this with my last guest, Chris Wood. I was telling him I could draw you a blueprint of the hospital room. I could tell you exactly where everything was, even where our bags were in the room. But then also, I do remember like that, like the hardest call I remember making was to my mum, calling
Yep.
her, and I just like I don't even think I said anything. I think I called her and she knew something was wrong because I don't usually call her. Usually just we text and we see her all the time anyway. She lives around the corner. And so she sort of was like wondering why I was calling, and then she just heard me sort of trying to say something over the phone, and I was just couldn't do it. I was crying, and she's I just told her like you have to come to the hospital, and she was there, and it was the same with my dad, like trying calling him as well, and it's yeah, it's been one of those things I've always wanted to ask, like to ask them, like especially my mum, like how she went after we lost Billy because Billy was also the first grandchild in the whole family, and everyone was really looking forward to it and was following along the pregnancy, and my wife was really sick the entire time, so she had hyperemesis, and so everyone was watching closely about the entire thing. And I remember, and I know that my dad um also would have and still does like sort of have to have his struggles with it, and but I think he's got some support because his older brother, they lost their son Matthew, I think almost 40 years ago now.
Yep.
And they have their own sort of ritual that they do where they go out on his birthday and they plant a tree. And so there's like a forest just for
Yep.
him now somewhere
Nice.
in the bush. Yeah, so I think you make a good point that there needs to be sort of more supports for not just the parents. And like it's only just recent, like the past few years, that there's been a more of a push for dads as well.
Yep.
It's because I remember when we lost Billy, like I didn't find anything for dad support in this area. I couldn't really find anyone that had gone through the same thing. I
Yep.
didn't and we went to counseling and stuff, my wife and I together, but it just didn't really gel with what we needed.
It's interesting though, even now, with the amazing supports that I've managed to find and the mates I've managed to make through everything, in the last couple of years, it's incredible how isolated and alone you can feel at hard times still. Like, and that's the thing that probably throws me the most is even now, 3 years later, it was the third anniversary of Wren's birth, or it's her third birthday and anniversary not long ago. And even though you can have the best support around you with mates and different charities and all this type of stuff, you can still feel so isolated and alone. You can still be thrown right back into that moment, even when, like you and I both know, there's people all around us who are navigating pregnancy and child loss, but you feel like you're the only one that it's ever happened to, and
Mm.
that's what it feels like when it first happens. But it can also feel like that down the track too. Like I've felt like not long ago. Even though you've got so many people around you, it's a really hard thing to get used to, and your brain does play tricks on you as well. Um, just being
Yeah,
wary that pulling yourself back into line and knowing that you need to talk to those close to you again. And yeah, but yeah, the isolating feelings of the days after, and you're the only person that's ever happened to, and then having them same feelings down the track as well, even when you know you're not. It is a hard thing to navigate as well.
this episode of the Room 11 podcast is proudly supported by Musashi, trusted by athletes across Australia for high performance supplements, protein powders, and nutrition that actually works. I use it. I hope you use it too. They've kindly offered our listeners an exclusive discount. Just use the code 1130 at checkout on musashi.com to get 30% off your next order. Feel free to share it around. That's 1130 at musashi.com. ELEVEN 30. The type of sort of experience that you go through, it's hard to, especially at the time, it's hard to even articulate what you went through to other people. And most people struggle to have a conversation with you about it because it's difficult for them, makes them uncomfortable. They don't know what to say, so they try and steer clear of having that conversation.
Yeah.
And then that just builds up on the stigma around baby loss and all that sort of stuff. And it's
I think even just the last, probably the last 18 months, there's more books out there. There's more, obviously you've got your podcast now. There's another new podcast in the UK popped up not long ago. So we're talking now, there's 5 podcasts now for dads that we can look at. I speak on behalf of dads because I guess that's where my niche is. That's where I spend a lot of time looking at being a dad. That's where my energy's gone to. If you were to ask me what there is out there for mums, it'd take me a couple of minutes and I can find you some incredible stuff as well. But, I know there is now 5 podcasts, really good podcasts out there for dads navigating early pregnancy loss through to losing a kid, in their up to 1, 2, 3 years old. There's books out there that cover a lot of different things as well. Support groups. There's support groups out there that maybe they weren't there a few years ago. I think it's the hard thing is finding them though, isn't it? Like when you're in the depths of grief, finding the supports is really hard. And you've also got to you need to want to find the supports as well, because they don't come to you. There's not many supports that will reach. Charities aren't allowed to reach out to people. Does that make sense? They're not allowed to go knocking on your door as such. I know there is referrals in for some that you can be referred to, like hospital at home, the Red Nose program and things like that. Hospital to home, sorry. But a charity just doesn't call you and say, "Hey, I heard your baby died. Jump in our support group." So you've actually got to look for it yourself, and that's the really hard thing to do when it's hard to find.
And I guess because I think in my experience, one of the reasons why even back then, like there wasn't much resources back then for dads 6 years ago, but I don't think I would have spent too much time trying to look for it because it was such a triggering sort of thing for me to look online about baby loss when I just experienced it.
Yep.
And that's why I think it's important to have that we're building this awareness together as a community. So people that have a friend or a family member that goes through it, they know that there are resources and then they can give it to them. They can share it with them as well. So it increases the chance of them finding these resources and these communities that will help them.
Absolutely. I guess education as well in hospital settings too. Being able to give people the right information at the right time, because a lot of the time, once you've left the hospital setting, you don't go back. So you literally get one shot at seeing people and giving the people what they need to set them up. And I do believe if you've got the right support around you, you can, I guess, build yourself a solid foundation to help you through the next weeks and months and years. Always having someone that you can lean on, always having, I guess, the right people and the right things implemented in your life that you can continue to keep moving forward as well, while honouring that who you've lost. I guess for me personally, I've got a couple of really close mates in the bereaved dad community. We're not a big community, but we're a pretty, we're a community that does look after each other, which is really nice. I've got some really good mates both here in Australia and the United Kingdom as well. Since after being on the Still Parents podcast and a few support groups, so having a few good mates there. But I've also got a couple of good close mates who aren't bereaved dads at home, who haven't been, they've always been good mates, but now I see them as really good mates. I was talking to a lady about a grief article that's coming out in The Age over the next few weeks. And I talked about a good mate of mine who he's always been a close mate of mine. When Wren died, he didn't give me an option of what we're going to do. He said, "Hey, Matty, this Sunday morning, I'm going to meet you down at the beach. We're going for a swim, go for a run and a swim." Didn't give me an option, made me go. And for me, that was really important. So he gave me 20 minutes every Sunday morning to have a chat about how I was feeling, what was going on. but also move the body, go for a run, and then have a bit of a reset in the ocean, middle of winter. So it was beautiful. And it was things like that. Like, you don't need a lot of good mates. You only need one or two good people around you as well that you can support. And I found that really instrumental for me. That morning swim with a mate and a chat and a coffee. Another mate who I've connected with through running as well. Now, actually, all we do is send running reels to each other, and our whole, our life is, our friendship is based around running. And I find that really important too, because it's something that's not baby loss. It's just someone who's happy to chat normally, but also when the times are tough, you'll also get a message off them and say, hey, if you want to chat, just come around and go, we'll yarn. So 2 people is all you need. For me personally, you don't need hundreds. You don't need 20. You just need a couple of good, solid people around you.
Just the quality, not the quantity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. Saying that, I've met a lot of incredible dads too, and we all support each other through different groups that we're in, little WhatsApp groups and Facebook groups. So it is good to also have connection with a big bunch of dads. So if you are battling, jump on, have a yarn, post something. I've also found that really good over the last few years too.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Like, it even the Brave Dads group that I'm in, that you run, with Love from Dad, like the group of guys are in there, like don't talk every day, but when there is something to say, like, or if someone's struggling, and they'll like, it's a space for them to connect, but also feel comfortable to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Which is a huge thing, because there's so many dads that feel like they can't be that way. Yep. And I know this firsthand from, I was at Michelle McCraner's fundraising gala last year.
Yep.
And I spoke about Billy there, and then there was a dad that was there. He'd recently lost his child, and he was clearly struggling, and he was sort of not managing it in a healthy way. Like, he was drinking heavily, and he just was able to vent and sort of release all this pressure about his experience and talk to me about it. And you could just see, like, the weight being lifted off him, because he had something somewhere for it to go.
Yeah.
And the whole experience for him in that loss sort of deteriorated his relationship and all that sort of stuff. And so it's important for them to have an outlet, which is why, like, these community groups are so ideal. Like the online space makes it so much easier for people to connect now.
Absolutely. And like, there's not just one WhatsApp group. There's, I've got one through Love from Dad. There's a Bears of Hope WhatsApp group too, which is a bunch of dads, east coast of Australia, and they have catch-ups as well. They had a catch-up a few weeks ago in Sydney. So jump in these groups. You're more than likely to find someone in your region, in your area, and you're a fair chance as well that you can probably catch up with them too. Even if there's not formal supports from the big charities, you jump in these groups and you'll have an informal catch up. You go on a little booze cruise, you go to the footy, and these things happen. They're behind closed doors, and unless you're in these groups, a lot of the time you don't know that they're happening. I do find I entered the Bears of Hope WhatsApp group only 2 months ago, and it's the first time I've been into a WhatsApp group without knowing people. So I found that quite different. So I started the Love from Dad one, so I know me and I know my story and I know everyone's story that comes into it. But when you come into a group a bit later, it is a little bit hard to, I guess, you don't know who's in the group. There's 50 people in the group before you, so it is a bit hard. But if you share a bit of your story, if you're comfortable, others will share their story back, and you start to meet these people. And the best thing about a WhatsApp group is that I'd like to think that I've created the Love from Dad one as a bit of a stepping stone for people. Is you jump into that WhatsApp group, you're not going to resonate with everyone in that group. We don't just all click and all resonate with everyone else's story, but there might be someone post something in there that you can then flick them a private message and say, hey, yeah, I really felt that, I get you when you said you had to do this, I had that same thing. And you can make friendships out of that group then. And that's what it's about. Being in these groups is, I think that they're a stepping stone. You jump in the WhatsApp group to find your community. You don't have to be friends with 50. You can be friends with 3. and you take that out into your private life, into your life out of that group. Another big one that no one knows about, it's called Daddies with Angels. It's an incredible charity in the UK. It's got a Facebook group. I think it's 1,800 strong, and a private Facebook group just for dads. So you've got to be a dad, and it's not just pregnancy, baby loss related. It's anyone who's lost the child. So you could be 60 and your son died when he was 40. You're welcome in that group. So there's this wide variety of people all posting things, looking for advice. And it's a really good way too, if you're looking for support, you can post something out there and people can write back. And I've actually, a couple of lads that I am really good mates with through this. They're both English dads who have been through something similar to what I've been through. So yeah, there's endless groups out there, but they're hidden. They are hard to find. I guess that's why I built Love from Dad, is because I kept on finding all these things, but they were spread out, and I'm like, no one's going to find these. I've put a fair bit of hours and hours and days into this. I thought, why don't I just put them into one place? And I guess that's the simple thing about how we ended up with Love from Dad too.
I think that's it's so important that you've made that resource for everyone, that sort of one-stop shop for people looking for particular things that they're currently struggling with at the moment, or even just finding places to connect. And I just wanted to know what was it and when was it that you were like, I need to start compiling this together? Were you doing this on your own, like having did you have this as a list for your own purposes, and then you're like, maybe I should put this as a website so everyone can have this?
I was involved with a little charity that was set up down in our local area to fund a bereavement room, which is done down here in Western Victoria. So the little charity I was involved in, it was only set up for 12 months and it accomplished its goals. So my wife and I then stood away because we didn't want to be involved in something big. We just needed to do our own thing. But we got this bereavement room set up, and it was at the back end of being part of that charity that I knew that there was a big shortfall in, I guess, supports. And I had, my wife did a bit of the website for the charity, so I was always looking up books and podcasts and that type of thing. So I started, I just put a list together. The big one though was I really felt like I wanted a space to share and to give dads a space to share our stories, because at the time I couldn't find anything online, and I wanted to share it in a blog post. So if there's nowhere to share it, well, why don't I just build a website where we can share our stories for our own benefit and for the benefit of others, for people want to read these things, so they don't feel as alone. So that's what it started out as. I literally just started out, I wanted to build a website where we could share our stories and maybe have a couple of little supports hooked in as well. And then it just it grew a little bit from there. I think there's maybe 8 different pages on it now. I always try and keep them up to date with different, any new books, any new podcasts, any new support groups, online, in person, that type of thing. So it's a real passion project, and I'm not sure where it'll end up, but it's something that I do really enjoy. And one of the nice things about it being a website is that if I need to switch off, I can as well. The website's there. I don't have to be front and center and doing a lot of things, because at the end of the day, I'm starting to, I guess, to reach a few different groups now and that do support dads. And if I need to switch off, I can. And the website's always going to be there. Which is a really nice thing as well.
Yeah, no, the website looks great. Like I've been on it a few times in the past few weeks, and just it's very user friendly, and it's easy to
simple.
read.
It's simple for us blokes, is what I've never done a website in my life, so I had to kind of teach myself how to use a website builder. So it wasn't going to be anything too flashy, but it does the job. You click on a button and it takes you to a website. It takes you to the book. It takes you to Amazon. It takes you to whoever, it takes you to the website. And that's what I wanted to do. It's mostly directing people to things, but then it's also got the space to share a story too, which I think is why I built Love from Dad. Is I wanted to give us a place to share our story as a written piece. And there's been some incredibles. Every story is incredible, and I've been really lucky. I might have 8 or 10 different stories on there at the moment, all different, all powerful, all just dads sharing what they've been through, which is a really powerful thing.
Yeah, no, I think it's so important that we get more dads sort of sharing their story to sort of open this space up. And so I would make me think about, like, what made you decide to start sort of writing and sharing your story so publicly, with like newspapers and online and podcasts. Was it just something that you felt like you needed to do, or you just?
I felt like I just wanted to talk. I think anytime I shared, I felt better, and it gave me a feeling of a weight come off the shoulders a little bit. So the more I shared, I guess the more power I felt. I know there's power in us sharing our stories, and I enjoy it. I enjoy sharing our daughter. I get to share our other kids all day, every day, and not often I do get. Not often we do get to share our children who are no longer with us. I think the first podcast I did with Steve at Prepared Dad, I did that because we wanted to record something about pregnancy after loss, because I know as a dad, there's nothing for dads out there trying to navigate that space. It's only, and it is really difficult. I haven't been.
There's nothing that prepares a dad for that.
No, exactly. So that's how that first one kicked off. And then I started speaking to the guys at Still Parents podcast, and that one happened. And then through Love from Dad, people want to be able to, they've heard a bit of the story. And then I have been lucky enough to share our story with a number of different, organizations who want to share it because they know it's important to hear from a dad. And when there's not many dads want to share, if you do share, you're like gold, aren't you?
Yeah, well, I saw that you went to Canberra as well to share Wren's story.
That was part of Perinatal Mental Health Week in November. So it's a mental health awareness week that's run every November. I was lucky enough, after doing the podcast episode with Steve at Prepared Dad, he, I guess, put my name forward as someone who might want to be able to speak as a lived experienced person. So it was at Canberra, it was at Parliament House, and it was pretty cool to have the opportunity to sit next to some incredible people in a room full of all the big charities and share our story. And I think the topic was what I wish I knew. And it was 18 months after Wren's birth that I've actually, for me, what I wish I knew is what I wish I knew now. I wish I knew then, that there is help out there. And I guess that's important now, is for anyone who is going through any type of loss, there's something there for you to help you. It might not make it any easier, but there is the support there. And there's more and more growing all the time. There's supports all over the place that are popping up as well. So yeah, that trip to Canberra was really cool. I met some incredible people there. And yeah, hopefully, keep repping Love from Dad maybe in the future. And yeah.
Yeah, I think it's. I saw that. I saw that happen, and I thought it was really cool that you had your nails painted pink as well, because it's such a good conversation starter.
That's it. I don't think I mentioned before, my wife painted Wren's nails when she was 2 days old in the NICU. So Wren's whole life she had pink nails. I've continued to paint my nails to this day. I still do it now. I've got a little bit of pink on my finger here. I'm not sure if you can see that. I usually, for big occasions, special occasions, I'll paint the whole hand, but at least at a minimum, I'll always have one finger painted pink. And when it's nearly worn off, I'll repaint it. We paint it with the same pink that we bought at the hospital. So yeah, we bought, it's called Miss Frankie. It's a little bottle there. It's called One Night Stand, which is, I'm not sure how I feel about that, but that's the color pink that we buy, and our family and friends and that all paint, paint their nails pink for us too, and for Wren. And it is a really special thing that I can do that does promote conversations as well out in the community. You know, I work on work sites sometimes and with elderly people other times, and people look at a late 30-year-old bloke with pink nails and they always ask why, and you just tell them why. So it is a really good conversation starter. And it's incredible how many people you do talk to then come back with their own story of either them or someone close to them who's been through something similar. So no matter where we look, this is everywhere. You can bury your head in the sand as much as you like, but baby loss is everywhere.
Yeah, I think it's so amazing to me. Like since we lost Billy and finding out more about stillbirth, infant loss, like there's so many different ways that you could lose throughout the pregnancy, and how often it happens. And my initial thought was like, why do not they don't tell you anything about this? Like our entire pregnancy the first time round I was going at a naive optimism. Like, it's all going to work out. It's all going to be fine. Like, just like you see in the movies and everyone else. Like, and then everything comes crashing down. And then it also alters your perception of pregnancy afterwards. So, like, we've had two kids after Billy, and those pregnancies were terrifying. Like, how did you manage subsequent pregnancy after that with Sarah?
It was really hard. So our next pregnancy was Noah. Noah. It was really hard. Psychologists, therapists, all the above. Grounding techniques, being in the moment, in the present, was really important.
Was the hospital? Did they give you any sort of support?
Hospital was incredible. We had walked through before we had the birth, so we knew it was going to be a planned Caesar. We went in and we met with the anaesthetic team, the theatre team. We had a walk through. We said we were going to sit, what was going to happen, and they were really accommodating. But I guess you need to be present. You need to ask as well. Which is really important. We asked for help from the hospital and we got it. If you don't ask, it's not expected to give additional help. So that's a big question. You've got to really fight for yourself as well. And if you do, and say what your issues are and what your worries are, and you've got to fight for yourself and fight for your partner and, fight for each other.
Yeah, that's such a huge thing that gets overlooked is that since our subsequent pregnancies, like there are so many stories here where the couples and the mother just sort of they follow along the path of this is standard procedure. The doctors told me I have to do this, do that. It's like, but and they can go through that whole thing not feeling comfortable about the way that they're going about the pregnancy, but not thinking that there's any other way that it can be done.
Yep.
And that's why it's so important to advocate for yourself and your partner and your baby, because there are other things that can be done if you're not comfortable with the way things are going. And we had to do that a number of times, especially with our second daughter who was born last year, where they weren't going to treat that pregnancy as a high risk pregnancy because we had our son who was labeled as a successful birth, even though he had to be resuscitated, but he was alive. And so they wanted to do just a general pregnancy. And we had to really push back. And they also weren't going to send us to the same hospital that we've been to the last two times.
Yeah. It'd be an interesting stat to find out. And in all of the loss, or maybe the later term losses, what percentage are, I guess, put into a category that is high risk and there is, deaths, or what category is put into, as you said, you've had a normal, birth this time, you're safe this time. I wonder if you look at the statistics of the people who have been put in the safe basket compared to those that are put in the high risk basket, what the numbers do look like. Are they putting people in the safe basket And is
that should have been in high risk?
That should have been in a high risk basket. Is that I don't know if there's any statistics around that, but presuming that because someone's had this, well, that's going to be fine next time. Well, we know that may not be the case. So presuming that someone is, say, going to be safe because it's been safe before, well, doesn't really, just because you had a live baby the first time doesn't mean it'll happen the second time, does it? So it'd be interesting to see the stats on that.
Interesting, because that would be such an important way to sort of frame to get more funding for pregnancy after loss services.
Yep.
Because that is something that's lacking in a lot of areas. And if it wasn't for us advocating for our daughter and them and us getting put on high risk and then put into a pregnancy after loss service scenario, then they wouldn't have picked up on the fact that pregnancy mirrored Billy's pregnancy, and we could have lost her exactly the same way if it wasn't picked up early on. And there's a lot of, and I know this because I've been in meetings because I'm currently working with the Stillbirth CRE around pregnancy after loss guide that can be distributed to hospitals, and speaking to other hospitals around Australia that have these services, the way that they determine who's high risk or not can sometimes depend even on staffing levels that they have, can depend on how far away this person lives, depending on whether they can go somewhere else to a GP every once in a while instead of going to the hospital every time. So it at the end of the day, I think if it ends up being a budget issue, trading issue, and a capacity issue more than anything else, which is unfortunate.
Which is really sad too.
Hey everyone, we'll get back to the show in a second, but I just want to let you know that on November 29 and 30, I'll be live streaming me riding a push scooter for over 270 kilometers around Calder Park Raceway, breaking a Guinness World Record in the process. It's called Scooting for Hope, and its purpose is to raise $100,000 for the Pregnancy After Loss service at the Royal Women's Hospital here in Melbourne, a service that helped save our second daughter's life after we tragically lost our first, Billy. That clinic is now at risk of being shut down due to a lack of funding. So this is about more than just a record. It's about keeping a vital service alive for other families walking the exact same path. If you'd like to help, there are a couple of simple things you can do. Donate if you can. The link's in the show notes and on all Room 11 socials. Or even just share, like, comment, and follow. The more engagement we get on our channels and this podcast, the more visibility we have and the better chance we have of securing funds from the big corporates. Every bit of momentum helps. So thank you for being here. Now let's get back to the show.
Bring it in with maybe a question that you could give, an answer you can give for people. If someone's supporting someone that's had a loss, with a baby loss, or whether it's a significant loss, what would your advice be for them to be able to provide substantial support?
Just be there for them, and listen. Don't judge. Don't say anything. Just be there to listen. Be an ear and a shoulder. I think that's the best thing any parent needs, is someone who can just listen to them, listen to what they're going through, what they've been through, how they feel. You don't have to ask questions. You just have to listen.